Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about emergency vehicles, how to get on and off the road safely, rules of the road, and what you need to do to pass a road test. Stick around. We'll be right back with that information. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Welcome back. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about emergency vehicles. And I did a video this week about how to make an emergency stop in the event that an emergency vehicle comes along and you have to pull off the roadway and stop on the edge of the road, and what you need to do and how you need to do that safely. There are actually a couple of jurisdictions. Ontario is one. There's also an emergency stop that is required in Dubai to pass a road test. So if you haven't seen that video already, have a look. Corey is here, and Corey is the moderator, Bricks for Wheels, and Corey will get that video up for you and any other videos that I suggest for the purposes of passing a road test or being successful. So tonight we're going to talk about emergency vehicles. I have talked about this previously, and there is a video which I'll point out to you. I thought I would revisit this because I sort of went over emergency vehicles this week. So if you're just tuning in to Smart Drive Test and are new to Smart Drive Test, consider subscribing, hit that thumbs up button, and leave us a comment, and all of that will certainly help out the channel and help those people who are passing a road test, working to remain crash free or start a career as a truck or bus driver. So a few people are here already tonight. Corey is here, as I said. UK is here. Thank you so much for the compliment. Vinny is here. Betty is here. Mr. Loveman is here, and thank you again for the compliment that you passed your knowledge test. Yes, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer, is my tagline for the videos. And Moki is here, so there are a few people here. There's the video. Corey got that up for you, and thank you very much for that. Without further ado, I am going to get myself going here on the PowerPoint presentation, so we'll move over to that. So Siddharth is here, Tommy is here, hello, Jaden is here. Jaden, your battery is dead. I too have had that experience this week. I have been under the suspicion that my battery on the buggy has been going for some time now, and because on the Honda CRVs between 1997 and 2003, and this because I've owned two of them now, have learned that when the battery starts to get old and dies, the power locks, the door locks, the power door locks won't work anymore, and the power door locks stopped some time ago working. And so yes, the other day I left the lights on for about 10 minutes, maybe half an hour, and I came out and the battery was completely dead. So I knew the battery was going. So fortunately, at the time, I was in Kelowna, and I was only two doors from a former student of mine who had bought a towing company, and I just walked down, and he had a battery pack there that you could just hook up to your car and get it boosted. So that was very fortunate. It was kind of ironic because I went down and talked to him about doing a video on tow trucks and what happens if you need to get your vehicle towed and those types of things. And so I went back and I said, the battery died on my car, which was ironic. So Capital's here, Felix is here, Hallface is here from Toronto, Irene is here from Stanford, Kentucky. That's awesome. Here from Kentucky, that's great. And Jaden, did you get the battery going on your vehicle there? Let me know. And what I'm going to do is, as I said, I'm going to head over to the PowerPoint presentation. I'll go through that, and then I'll come back and we'll have questions and answers. And again, just continue if you're just tuning in here with the live stream. Definitely tell us where you are. I definitely know I have a friend who's sitting on an airplane at the Calgary airport because they had a suspicious package in Calgary at the airport that they reported to police. So police have shut down the airport, and unfortunately my friend is sitting on a plane there in Calgary on the tarmac, which is the worst. It's one thing to be sitting in the airport, but it's an entirely different thing when you're stuck on the tarmac in the plane. And my friend Edgar is here. All right, so here we go. This time for sure, I'm going to go over and do the PowerPoint presentation, so just bear with me here. Oh, great. So emergency stops. This was the video that I got up this week. And as I said, it shows you how to do the procedure step by step of getting off to the side of the road and getting back onto the road safely, and how to do that. And oftentimes that's the reason for that is for emergency vehicles that are approaching from the rear And a couple of people have asked me, you know, well, what happens if I don't know where the emergency vehicle is? And it can be confusing when you're driving and you hear sirens blaring and you don't know where they're coming from. So we'll try and give you some tips and ideas about that, and perhaps some of the smart drivers here tonight will also be able to give you some information about that and finding them and getting off the road. So just before we get started here, it is snowing here in Vernon, and it's our first snowfall of the year. It's really late this year compared to last year. Now that it's the 8th of December, we've actually got our first snowfall. So if you're looking for a winter driving course, head over to the Smart Drive Test website and sign up for the winter driving course over there. It's $7. You'll save 82% off $37.97. The topics in the course: common crashes, fender benders or mangled mess, gearing up to slay the abominable snow creature, the gear that you need to put in your vehicle, and the maintenance that you should do to your vehicle for wintertime, and talking about tires and whatnot. Lesson 3, white knuckle driving, operating safely on snow and ice, and how to do that effectively. Lesson 4 is pushing the envelope, driving in the harsh conditions that old man winter can throw down. Driving in deep snow, driving when you're tired at night and there's glare, driving in glaring sun on a white landscape, so make sure that you carry your sunglasses with you. Lesson 5 talks about distracted, drowsy, and debilitated drivers on the roadway. Many drivers are in fact distracted, and as some of you may or may not know, you may have heard me say this before, the number one abused drugs that drivers take are over-the-counter medications and prescription medications. They're the most abused drugs on that drivers take. And then finally in lesson 6, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Route planning and navigation, something that is simply not taught in driver education courses. So I give you some ideas and techniques and skills to be able to find your way. For those of you who are new to Smart Drive Test, I am Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s. 1997, I became a licensed commercial driving instructor and have been since that time, with an expertise mostly in air brakes and commercial vehicles. And this is the next phase for next year of what I'm going to be doing. And I was also talking to Ideal Lease there in Kelowna about using some of their equipment and getting some of these videos going. 2006, I graduated from the University of Melbourne with a doctorate in legal history. For those of you who don't know, legal history is the study of policing, courts, and prisons, and my expertise is in policing as it relates to traffic. And while I was going to university, I drove for Greyhound in Australia, between Melbourne, Canberra, and Sydney, Australia, and also Parkes, New South Wales. And this is a picture of me when I had hair in 2002. All right, so on a road test, if you do not stop for an emergency vehicle, it is an automatic fail. And if you watch the video on emergency vehicles here on the channel, I tell a story about a student that I had some years ago. He was a couple of days before his road test and was feeling quite confident in his ability to pass his road test. So we come down, we were heading north on Highway 97 back into Vernon, and we came down the hill. There's a big hospital hill here. We came down the hill, and there was an emergency vehicle down at the bottom of the hill that I sort of saw off in the distance, and I was like, oh, okay. Unfortunately, the emergency vehicle turned off in one of the intersections. Oh, that's kind of a bummer. So we come down, we came through the main intersection at Polson Park, and got past the intersection about a half a block, and another emergency vehicle came out, and he failed to stop for the purposes of his road test. And I looked at him and I said, unfortunately, you just failed your road test. If you do not stop on a road test, it is an automatic fail. And if this can happen to you during your driver training, that is a really good thing, because you're going to learn that you must stop. It's really the proverbial fly in the ointment on a road test, and it catches out a lot of drivers. All right, so who are the emergency vehicles? Emergency vehicles are police, fire, ambulance, and in catastrophic emergencies can be search and rescue as well. And you have to pull off the road for all of these vehicles. Now, as a courtesy, and we could talk about this a little bit more, maybe Jake will be here because Jake is a firefighter. Volunteer firefighters responding to emergencies may have green flashing lights on their vehicles. I know that this is in Ontario, and some of the smart drivers may know other states and provinces and jurisdictions that have different colored lights for volunteers that are volunteer firefighters who are responding to emergencies. So know that as well. If you ever see a green flashing light, that's what it is. All right. The lights and sirens on emergency vehicles are only requesting the right of way. As part of the Traffic Act, you must move out to the closest shoulder. Excuse me. these emergency vehicles will move slowly through intersections because they know that many people do not hear sirens, do not obey the sirens, or do not see the emergency vehicles for whatever reason. So they're moving slowly through the intersection because oftentimes they're going contrary to the light, and they don't want to get into a crash, because there's nothing more embarrassing for a driver of an emergency vehicle than to be involved in a crash. And also they know that other vehicles aren't going to stop. So oftentimes they go quite slowly and quite carefully through intersections, especially if they're proceeding on a red light. Now, the other thing, as I posted in social media this week, know that emergency vehicles are pack animals. If there's a fire truck, there's oftentimes going to be an ambulance. If there's a police vehicle, oftentimes there's going to be a fire truck, because in many instances they're responding to a traffic crash, and firefighters are first responders, so they're going to go out and get the people out of the vehicle. So be on the lookout for another vehicle, another emergency vehicle, if you do in fact see one that goes past. Okay, if you're sitting at an intersection, sorry, I forgot to put up the sayings here for this, so I'll just delete that and talk about what I was going to say in terms of roundabouts and intersections. My apologies. If you're sitting at an intersection, often the best response to emergency vehicles at an intersection is to just simply stop. As you can see, the ambulance in this picture here, and I'll just make this picture a little bit bigger here for you. And of course, my computer decides that it's going to go goofy on me. There we go. You can see that the ambulance has moved into the oncoming lane of traffic to move through the intersection because the traffic on the other side is stopped. And oftentimes this is what's going to happen at intersections. I've had smart drivers ask me, what do I do at an intersection? Do I turn or do I proceed or what? No, oftentimes it's just better just to stop and allow the emergency vehicle to weave through the intersection. If you are turning right, maybe it's best to turn right. If you're in a roundabout, same thing. Proceed through the roundabout and then stop once you get past, okay? If there is an emergency vehicle, and I have had drivers of emergency vehicles say this to me, that do not try to outrun the emergency vehicle, and do please pull over for them and let them get on and help the people that need serious help. Okay, we have had here in Canada, and I don't know about the U.S., maybe some of the smart drivers from the States there can tell me this, we have move-over laws, and I will tell you from personal experience of driving that you should and must move over and slow down. Give these people some space, especially with police vehicles. Sometimes when police vehicles have cars pulled over, as they do here in this picture, the police vehicle is hedging the roadway. So in other words, it's blocking the vehicle to protect it with its vehicle. And I have seen on multi-lane roads that the police cruiser is actually taking up an entire lane. So if you don't get over, you're going to run into the back of the cruiser, or you're going to have to stop and then try and get out and around them, those types of things. So be looking far down the road, especially at night, and looking for these lights and looking for police vehicles and making sure that you're getting over and you have ample time to get over, okay? Now, the other cautionary note about this is that watch out for rubberneckers and people having a sticky beak who are looking at emergency vehicles, especially if there's a crash along the roadway or it's on the other side of the roadway in oncoming lanes of traffic. If there are police vehicles with lights and sirens and those types of things, other drivers are going to be looking. They're going to be incredibly distracted. So make sure that you stay back from them. You give yourself lots of space in case they do something goofy, because it's not unheard of in many, many instances where there's a crash on the other side of the road, and because people are having a rubberneck, they run into the back of the vehicles in front of them. So have a look for that. Okay, just back to the winter driving course, $7. Head over to the Smart Drive Test website. The link is down in the description there, just below the video. Okay. Take the course, don't crash, keep control of your vehicle on snow and ice, unlike this red vehicle here, which kind of lost control on the snow, and learn when it is most dangerous in the wintertime and when the most treacherous conditions are, because there are times and weather conditions that are much more treacherous than other times to drive in the wintertime. And remember, good luck on your road test if you have a road test coming up, and as well, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to answer questions, and we'll have a discussion here, and some people will be able to fill in some of the blanks for us here in the United States about move-over laws and those types of things. Okay, so there's the winter driving course. Corey put that up for me. Hall Snoop is here. Sean is here. Hall Phase, you haven't seen the new video. I actually got a new video up for you this week, Hall Phase, okay? So Moki, if you have questions, by all means, we're back and we're willing to take questions and answers. IATCU, all 50 states have passed a law which were promoted in response to increasing roadside fatalities in the line of duty. So there's an entry in Wikipedia. So all of that is there. 380s here. And apparently not in Washington, D.C., which is a federal jurisdiction. Hall Phase, it's snowing early for you. No, it's not snowing early for us, Hall Phase. Actually, it's kind of late this year, okay? Hall Snoop, just for an update, the rude examiner got fired from his job since only 1 out of 10 people passed and people complained. Well, I haven't heard that before, Hall Snoop. That's probably a new one, and I do appreciate you letting us know that. Okay, Siddharth, I have my road test on Wednesday, and my car has a camera with guidelines, and when I parallel park, am I allowed to glance at the camera to make sure I can make it? Hall Phase, or no, sorry, Siddharth, apologies. Wrong smart driver there. No, you cannot use a camera. There's only one place that you can use a camera, and that is in the state of New Jersey. Otherwise, I would suggest, for the purposes of your road test, to turn your backup camera off, okay? All right, and Tommy says there's a move over law in Florida, and regardless of the laws that are in place in terms of move over laws for emergency vehicles and first responders on our roadways, it's just safety for you as a driver to try and get over and slow down, because as I said, in the event of an emergency, in the event of a crash, there are going to be rubberneckers on the roadway and you could potentially get into a crash. So it's just a defensive posturing for you to get over and to slow down and increase your observation as you're going past these scenes, these emergency scenes with emergency vehicles and those types of things, especially at night. When the lights are on, the flashing lights are on, it can be very distracting. So it's just defensive posturing on your part. And as well, as I said, for the purposes of a road test, you have to stop for emergency vehicles. If you don't, that's an automatic fail on a road test. Now, the one piece that I didn't mention in the presentation there, the only time that you don't have to stop for emergency vehicles is if you are on a multi-lane road that is divided by a physical barrier, like a concrete barrier down the middle. That's the only time that you don't have to stop for emergency vehicles. Now, if you're in town and it's intermittent, that sort of concrete barrier or physical barrier down the center of the roadway, then that doesn't count. You still have to come to a complete stop in the event of emergency vehicles on the roadway. It's only when you're out on a multi-lane highway and it's physically separated by a concrete barrier. Okay? Hall Phase. In some areas, you have to move over from the right lane if there's an emergency vehicle on the shoulder. Yes. That's correct, Hall Phase. And as well, the other thing that I didn't mention in the presentation is that you don't necessarily always go to the outside. Sometimes when you're pulling over, the left lane is going to be the closest shoulder for you to go to. And I noticed there when I was looking on Google for some of the images and information about putting the presentation together, that going down the freeway, there's an emergency vehicle going down the center of the freeway, and the cars are simply moving out to give room for the emergency vehicle to pass. So that's another option as well. Okay, Vinny, should you pull over when an emergency vehicle is coming from the opposite direction, no matter what type of roadways? As I said, Vinny, the only time that you don't have to pull over is when the roadway is separated by a physical barrier. That's the only time that you don't have to move over. Okay, Moki, can you call me? Excuse me. Yeah, we can. Moki, Rick at smartdrivetest.com. That's my email address. 380, the good old school trucker is coming out of you, common sense and courtesy. Yes, it is, Hall 380. It certainly is. Sebastian, today near the Parkway Center in Brooklyn, I was stuck in traffic, and despite the fact I heard an emergency vehicle approaching from behind, I continued to move up with traffic ahead of me. So you couldn't move over at all, Sebastian, while the emergency vehicle was coming up. I know there in Brooklyn you're going to have a lot of traffic, and emergency vehicles are always struggling in those larger metropolitan areas with the sheer amount of congestion. Okay, Tommy, how come you didn't include town trucks in your PowerPoint? Town trucks. I'm not following you, Tommy, in terms of town trucks. Okay, send not call. Okay, was that a poor decision? Yeah, Sebastian, if you can get out of the way of emergency vehicles, that's always your best defensive posturing. Otherwise, you know, it's really tough it's frustrating for the drivers of these emergency vehicles who are trying to get to an emergency as quickly as possible. I couldn't move over on the sides because it was, heavily congested. And sometimes that's what's going to happen for you, Sebastian. So perhaps you did do the right thing. I mean, there is a certain amount of discretion that goes along with all of this. Okay. The Big Rig Travels. No, I can't say I'm familiar with that one, Hall Phase. Maybe you could send that link to me. 380, our procedure is to stay in the leftmost lane while responding in flowing traffic. If complete standstill, we split center or take breakdown lanes, sometimes both. Driver's discretion, yes. And again, as you're taught, 380 is that when you're driving emergency vehicles, the lights and sirens are simply a request for the right of way. Yes, absolutely, that the Highway Traffic Act gives you the right of way and other vehicles are supposed to move out of the way, but you know, as a driver of emergency vehicles, that unfortunately is not always going to happen for you. So this is essentially what you're taught here, is to stay in the leftmost lane. For complete standstill, we split center or take breakdown lanes. Yes, so you either head for the shoulders or you go out into the oncoming lane of traffic, depending on which way is going to let you to get around the congestion, around the stopped vehicles, and respond as quickly as possible. Tommy, how are you tonight, my friend? All right. Okay, so how to learn to reverse and back up. There you go. Okay, tow trucks. Right. Okay, Tommy, now I know what you're talking about. Tow trucks, not town trucks. My apologies for that. Yes, move over laws also include tow trucks and other vehicles that are recovering vehicles off the side of the road. My apologies about that. So we're kind of talking about emergency vehicles, but tow trucks, in terms of the move over laws, are included in the move over laws. And please do move over in the event that tow trucks are trying to get vehicles off the side of the road or help people whose vehicle has broken down or stranded or those kinds of things. All right. There we go. And on that note, I was in Kelowna this week talking to my mate Dave, who has a tow truck company. It's called Brian's Towing. He's got a new tow truck, one of the big ones, you know, the tractor trailer moving type trucks, and he was pretty proud of his new acquisition there, new vehicle in his fleet. And I'm going to do a video with Dave, and I'm going to give you some information about things that you need to call a tow truck for. You know, many of us have roadside assistance, but you can call a tow truck. And last year when the buggy broke down, I called Dave and he gave me a tow as well. You can call tow trucks for a boost. So my friend my friend Jaden had his battery was dead, so you can call a tow truck and get a boost and get your battery going. As well, you can call them if you lock your keys in your car to come out and get your car open. Last week I had to do that. I didn't call the tow truck company, but I did call a locksmith, and the locksmith came out and got the car open in about 10 minutes. And also, if you need a tow, if your car breaks down and you need to get it into a mechanic or something like that, you can also call a tow truck. So there's different reasons to call a tow truck. Okay, back to hello, and okay, so yeah, Siddharth, thanks for the answer. I was practicing for my road test, and some of the roads where I went had cars on both sides, and I felt like 50 was too fast and 35 to 40 was fast enough. Is this all right on a test? Yes, Siddharth, if you're in residential areas and there's cars parked on both sides, and it's fairly narrow space in terms of the roadway that you're on, you can go at a slower speed, probably 40, 45 kilometers an hour. Whatever, you know, if it's justified, then you can do that for sure. Okay? Jasmine is here. Hello, Jasmine. Back to what is red signal to left turn. Back to there is a video on left turn signals, and there are traffic lights that are specifically for turning left, and if it is a red light and there is a sign that says controls left turning traffic, then you cannot turn left on a red light. So you need to know where those are for the purposes of your road test. Okay, who else is here? Moki, downshifting. Moki, are you talking about downshifting in a passenger vehicle, or are you talking about downshifting in a big rig? Tractor trailer CDL license. Which one are you talking about? Jasmine, hello. Hall Smoop, are DUI checkpoints legal or immigration's checkpoint inside the country while driving? DUI checkpoints are totally legal, Hall Snoop, and especially at Christmas time, you're going to find those. That they're going to have these breathalyzer tests for drivers to ensure that they're not under the influence of alcohol or drugs while they're driving. Jaden, I have a police officer buddy that helped me jumpstart my car, and when we tried accelerating the pedals, nothing. All right, so Jaden, when you push down on the accelerator, did you open the hood and make sure that the linkage to the throttle body was moving, that the linkage was actually there? Because maybe that linkage is disconnected or it's broken or something. I know there's a cable in my car. So there we go. Issue. Hello from Vancouver. Yes, it's raining a lot in Vancouver. There we go. Fekru, I learned a lot from you. Thank you so much. You are most welcome. Thank you. And let us know where you're from if you're just tuning in the world. That's really great as well. If you're new to Smart Drive Test and you like what you see here, consider subscribing. Hit that thumbs up button as well if you're new here, and leave a comment. Try and get to the comments every day and give people response excuse me, to their questions, and try and answer so that they can be successful on passing their road test. Okay, Christina. Great info. Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Okay, Jaden. No, we tried putting the cables on the battery. Okay, Jaden. Yeah, no, I understand that you tried putting the cables on the battery, but you said, okay. All right, now let me ask you this question, Jaden. Do you know how to jump start a car? Like, do you know how to put booster cables on and start the car? Because I think I might be missing something, Jaden, in terms of what you're trying to ask me. Okay. Okay, Moki, CDL truck downshift. Okay, Moki, you need to look at the video on shifting theory. Corey will put that up for you. Now, I will tell you this, Moki. One of the things about trucks that is completely different from cars and passenger vehicles is that first, you have to slow down to gear down in a big truck, which is quite different than it is in a normal car. So that's the first thing that you have to do. The second thing that you have to do is if you can bring the RPMs on the truck down to 1,000 RPM, that's going to make your life a whole lot easier because you don't have to bring the revs up as much to match rev when you're shifting down. So bring the truck down to 1,000 RPM, and then when you bring it down, bring it into neutral, throttle up to 1,400 RPM, and then push the clutch in and pull it into gear, and it should come into gear for you. As well, Moki, when you're shifting from high range to low range, and for the purposes of a road test, you have to demonstrate to the examiner that you can shift from high range to low range, and that means you have to shift from 5th gear to 4th gear. When you shift from 5th to 4th gear in a big truck, you have to have the truck at 20 kilometers an hour or 12 miles per hour. If you don't have it at that speed, it will not go nicely into that low range. I'm quoting Shakespeare here. It will not go nicely into that low range. So make sure that you get it down to that speed before you shift from 5th to 4th gear. All right? That should give you a bit of information. And then there'll be a lot more information for you, Moki, in the shifting theory video. And Corey's got it up there for you down at the end there. I can see now. Okay. Hall phase. When it is cold to ride a motorbike, people still riding them here. Yeah, Hall phase. People are kind of goofy when it comes to motorcycles. They just keep riding them. I think so, yes. Okay, so Jaden, just quickly, I'll just go over how to do this. So you get the battery cables hooked up, right? So you hook them up to the boosting car first, the car that you're going to use that's running. You put the red on the positive and the black on the negative, and then you hook the cables up to the dead battery. So you hook up the positive first on the dead battery, and then you hook up the negative, and you wait a couple of minutes, and you should hear the engine on the boosting car kind of set down a little bit. It'll kind of, like if it's sitting at 1,000 RPM, it'll idle down to 800 or 900. You'll hear it set down a little bit. Once it does that, then it's ready. You could let it sit for maybe boost for about 5 minutes, and then go in, make sure the vehicle is in park, or make sure it's in neutral if it's a standard transmission, and then turn it over and see if it should start. It should start when you're boosting it within a couple of minutes, and I don't understand why you don't have any Maybe the reason that it wasn't working or it didn't boost the vehicle is because you didn't have good contact with the booster cables. And sometimes when that happens, you kind of have to wiggle the booster cables a little bit just so they get good contact with the posts on the batteries. So try that and see if that works for you. And I'm going to do a video for you, Jaden. It's on my list. I seem to, now that I started making videos again this week and got another video up for you, I just have this just horrendous amount of videos. Not horrendous, but I have a lot of video ideas that I need to get done for you. So that's one of them that's on my list. Okay, Keith, smart drive test. I am Tom for a license for a new driver. Okay, Keith, you are definitely in the right place if you're working towards a license, and definitely have a look at, Corey will put it up for you, Learn to Drive. It's the playlist for Learn to Drive, and Corey will get that for you as well. Okay, Siddharth, I get that I can't look at the camera, just wondering why. If I'm not relying on it and only checking for a second, why isn't it allowed? I'm still 360 degrees checking and looking out the back window. Siddharth, I'm only giving you the best advice that I can for the purposes of you being successful on your road test. And I would suggest that you be successful on your road test. And my counsel is just for you to turn the backup camera off and just do what's required for the purposes of the road test. If you think that you can leave it on and just glance at it, then that's fine. But the examiner wants you to play the game. They want you to be able to do what you need to do, looking out the back window, doing 360 degrees, using your mirrors. I don't know. Okay, I think that I am on board with what you're saying, that you use all of the tools at your dispense to stay safe. But these are the requisites for a road test, and you want to be successful on your road test. So do everything in your power to be successful on your road test, okay? All right. There we go. 380. Okay. Aren't Jakes most effective at earth-shattering high revs, so bringing down to 1,000 RPM would extend slowing? No, 380. We're talking about two different things. For the purposes of a road test, when you have to downshift, you need to bring it down to 1,000. You're absolutely right about Jake brakes, but that's something very different. So if you're downhill braking on a long downgrade, yes, you want the engine RPMs up high. So you want the engine RPMs up to 1,1800 RPM is going to give you the best retarding power with the Jake brake. Yes, it works best at high RPMs. Siddharth, I think it's because they want you to know that you can parallel park without a backup camera and how you don't have to rely on technology to park. And yes, that's what their thinking is in terms of driving examiners. Now remember, driving examiners are not drivers, okay? Driving examiners they're gatekeepers, right? They're marking off a set of criteria, and you have to fit into that criteria and fit into that box. And if you can do that, you're going to have a much higher success rate of passing your road test. Okay, Miguel, what's your question about insurance? Rabia is here. Hello there. How are you? Hall Phase, great channel is back up and running. Excellent. Thank you, Hall Phase. I was thinking about you when I was working furiously on that video yesterday. Okay, Epic. Hello, Epic. Had an emergency vehicle close to me by a railway crossing. Should I cross the railway with an emergency vehicle siren or stop then cross? Do get confused with right turn signal signs. Epic, it's probably best to wait for the emergency vehicle to pass you and then proceed after the emergency vehicle goes past. Okay, Bricks Corey, I believe the idea is you should be able to be confident with your observation while being completely camera free. Yes, there we go. Thank you for other people's support. I hope that my explanation there was maybe not as clear as it could be. Okay, Jaden, but I'm good news, record me and my dad are going to fix my car battery by jump starting it or taking it to an auto store. Yes, you're probably going to need to replace your battery, just like I need to replace my battery in my vehicle. Maybe I'll even do a video on that because it's fairly easy to change out your battery. Hall Snoop, yes, I do have Discord. I just don't have it public at this juncture. I do have it. Okay. Excellent. Rabia, you're great. Hi, I wish I had the emergency vehicle video before yesterday. I have my license though. Hello. Back to what is the main mistake in exam and parallel parking is mainly. So can you answer me, please? What is the main problem? So basically, for the purposes of a road test, back to, you need to have 4 components in place: observation, communication, speed management, space management. Okay, so space management, you need to have that in place. So stop at the correct stopping position at stop signs, before the stop line, before the crosswalk or crosswalk line. You need to follow at 2 to 3 seconds. You need to stop in traffic so that you can see the tires of the vehicle in front of you making clear contact with the pavement. And as well, you need to stay away from pedestrians. You need to have at least 1 lane buffer of space between your vehicle and pedestrians. Don't do what cars do to me for whatever reason, because when I walk around, they always seem to want to get as close to me as they can. Don't do that on the purposes of a road test in terms of space management, okay? Remember, space management, if you're not near anything and you're not near any fixed objects, it's less likely that you're going to be involved in a crash, okay? So space management, speed management, posted speed limit, flow of traffic, whichever is less. That's the speed that you travel for the purposes of a road test. Observation, you have to observe effectively while you're driving. You have to shoulder check, and this is critical. You must shoulder check 2 times for every time you're going to turn. You must shoulder check 2 times every time you're going to move the vehicle sideways. Excuse me. You must have a scanning pattern in place when you're driving straight down the road. So far down the road, look at your center mirror. Far down the road, both sides of the road on as much as you can see. Come in, check your wing mirrors. Far down the road, check your instrument panel, and then just repeat that every 10 to 15 seconds while you're driving. Every time that you back up, you're going to do a 360-degree scan of the area, and then when you're backing up, you're going to look straight out the back window for observation. The last piece is communication. You must communicate to other traffic what your intentions are on the roadway, and you must communicate via your lights, your horn. Okay, remember, horns are now seen as a sign of aggression, so tap lightly on your horn if you're going to use that. Lights, horns, hand gestures. Make sure that you use all 5 fingers. Don't tell somebody they're number 1 on a road test. Eye contact. If you get a pedestrian, you're not sure what they're doing, get eye contact with that pedestrian before you move through the intersection. And then finally, the position of your vehicle on the roadway indicates to other road users what you're doing. So that's the 4 components that you need to do for the purposes of a road test. And as well, the main purpose of a road test is for you to demonstrate to the examiner that you have due care and control of your vehicle in changing traffic situations. Nothing more, nothing less. And your job for the purposes of a road test is to take away the examiner's right to fail you. That's all you need to do, okay? So that's it in a nutshell. Okay, Tommy, is a B train the same thing as a double? Okay, B doubles, B trains. Yes, B double, Tommy, is the Australian version of that, and B trains are the Canadian version of 2 trailers. Now, just to confuse all of this for you, Tommy, there are A trains, B trains, C trains, and Super Bs. And if you want to know the difference between A, B, and C, and Super Bs, I'll let you know, but there are different ones. Okay, Sebastian, one things I see contribute to emergency vehicle delays is when drivers who commute to New York refuse to let you merge to their lanes. Yes, and so you're going to, in that sense, Sebastian, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to adjust your speed so that you either get in beside those road hogs, or in behind those road hogs rather, or get in front of them. Yes, and unfortunately people do that, but you're going to have to figure out some way of getting around them. Okay, New York drivers have a bad reputation for delaying traffic and playing hardball with people who are in need to merge into their lanes. Yes, and you know, Sebastian, that's not just New York. It's also Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, Florida, Tampa, Florida. You know, just about anywhere you're going to get people are going to do that. But essentially what you need to do is you need to just relax, you know, sit back and go, yeah, you can go and have your crash somewhere else and just do what you need to do in terms of driving safely. Okay, Hall Phase, I just watched the latest video. It is a very good video of what to do when there's an emergency vehicle behind you. Thank you very much, Hall Phase. I appreciate that. I was kind of proud of that when I got it done. So, and I'm finding that my editing skills are getting better too. Fekru, I studied all your helpful info from YouTube again and again. Then I passed my road test last Thursday at first test. Thanks again. Fekru, that is really awesome. Congratulations, and we're so happy that we could help out with your success in passing your road test. And if we could ask you a favor, if you could go over and sign up for the 100K campaign, that would be really great. Corey will put up the link there for you for the 100K campaign. If you could sign up for that, that would be really great. Hall Face, did everyone had to do their road test in Manhattan or New York City? Yeah, I'm sure a few people have done their road test. I know Sebastian has. Excuse me. Jaden, this is part of the topic of emergency vehicles, but in Port Charlotte, Florida, there was a call of a vehicle crash on Veterans Boulevard, but it was the single car. You're most welcome, Sebastian. Good guy. Hello, how are you this evening? Okay, Chronic Sneaky, I passed my driver's test because of you. Thank you so much. Chronic Sneaky, thank you for letting us know. Congratulations on passing your road test, and do let us know if you could sign up for the 100K campaign. That would also help us out. I think we're going to be a little short on our numbers, but we had a big lofty goal there to get 100,000 people passing their road test in the next year. Maybe if I get some of these videos going, that'll help people out with, and that'll get our 100K campaign going as well. And as well, I need to promote that a little bit more to get it really going. Okay. Me in New York City, I did my road test local to my driving school there in Queens. That's awesome, 217. That's really great. How is it like to take a road test in New York, Sebastian? I'm sure that it's a bit more challenging, like sort of taking a road test in Toronto and whatnot. Okay, Tommy? I was just off there, distracted a little bit. You do in fact want to know the difference between A trains, B trains, and C trains. Okay, so A trains are commonly what FedEx or UPS pull, and essentially what you have is you have a tongue on the second trailer, or there's a dolly under it, and it's a pintle hook. It's a little round hook that hooks onto a mechanism at the front here. And essentially what happens is now you have two pivot points between the first and second trailer, because it pivots on the pintle hook and it pivots, the dolly wheels move too. It's kind of like a hay wagon on the farm. So those are A trains, and they're commonly referred to in the industry as wiggle wagons. And the reason they're wiggle wagons is because when you're going down the road and you look in the mirror and you see the A trains behind you, they're kind of going down the road like this. I'll hold my hands up there because now I can see in the camera that you can't see my hands down below the frame. B trains are a better configuration than A trains because there's actually a set of axles and then there's a fifth wheel plate on it. So the second trailer actually sits on the fifth wheel plate. So that's B trains. And then C trains are like A trains, except they only pivot at the pintle hook. The axle underneath the second trailer is actually fixed, so it doesn't move. So that's a C train. Now the difference between B trains and Super Bs is that B trains have two axles sitting between where the two first and second trailer join, and on a Super B there's three axles between the two of them. And maybe next week what I can do is do a presentation on different tractor trailer units and what the configurations are in A trains, B trains, and C trains, and we can talk a little bit about that. That might be kind of fun. Okay, so Vinny's looking for a story today. I think you missed the story about boosting my car. All right, Vinny, I do have a story for you about emergency vehicles, which is kind of fun. Okay, Sebastian, there we go. Jaden, look at my profile picture on YouTube. It's me and Engine 22 at Bonita Springs Fire Department. Excellent. I'll definitely have a look at that, Jaden. Okay, Vinny. So here's the story for you, Vinny. I know that you like the stories. So one of the things that we do when I worked at all of the driving schools, and I still do this, one of the rules that we have is that after a student is successful in passing his or her road test, we don't let them drive back home, okay? Because they're just excited. They're not really paying attention to their driving. They're just so relieved of all of the work they've done, especially for CDL drivers who, passed a road test on a bus or a truck or something else. So we don't let them drive back. And so we were doing some training for one of the drivers at the local fire department. It was for one of the volunteer drivers. So went in, he took the fire truck down, did his road test, and then I sort of laxed on the rule of not letting him drive back because he was driving the fire truck. And I thought, well, I shouldn't drive the fire truck when really I should have driven the fire truck. So we're done the road test. He was successful on his road test, passed his road test. We're driving back, and it was kind of a drive. It was 25 minutes back to the fire station. And of course, he was very excited that he passed his road test. So he had to stop at his girlfriend's on the way home and tell her that he'd passed his road test. And the whole family came out and they were all excited that he'd passed his road test. And so we get back in the fire truck and we're driving back to the fire station. And so he drives in, he drives around the back of the fire station, comes back out the front, pulls up in front of the door, and then he proceeds to back up. Well, I didn't really sort of think about what he was actually doing. And then I realized he's like, oh, damn. And he had backed up into the door, the garage door of the fire station. And so that was bad enough in and of itself. And he did some minor damage to the door. And then he pulls ahead and in the console, the center console, which I did not know was the garage door opener for the door. So I learned after that I have a very strict policy now that when a student is successful on his or her road test, they do not drive back from the testing center. So that's the rule. Okay. All right. Krista, hello. Thank you for your help, Rick. I have my road test in January. Where and how often should I practice driving? Krista, you should practice driving as much as possible between now and your road test. The more experience you can get driving, the more experience you can get in different vehicles, the more prepared you are going to be for your road test. And especially do slow speed maneuvers, practice your parallel parking. Don't practice it all the time, but if you can get in the car, Krista, with your mom and, drive her to work in the morning and then bring the bus back or something and then meet her in the afternoon, all of that is going to make you a much better driver and going to make you more comfortable and more confident for the day of your road test, okay? All right, Sebastian, I had my pre-test about an hour before my test was scheduled to warm me up and help me to get there confident. It doesn't matter if you get tested in Brooklyn or Manhattan, trust me. Yes, and Vinny, I heard the battery one, just love your stories. Thank you so much, Vinny. And Vinny, I really appreciate you asking me to tell stories because now when I'm thinking about the live stream, I'm actually thinking about some of the stories that I should be telling. And this is actually one of the key successes for YouTubers is being able to tell good stories. So I appreciate you asking me to tell stories, Vinny, because it's making me a better storyteller and I'm able to help you out. And it helps the channel out because people like good stories, right? So one of the other stories that I have, Vinny, is, and I'm going to flesh this out a little bit for you. I was speaking with Ideal Ace to use some of the equipment to start doing some of the CDL training, and they have a transmission called an Ultra Glide, and maybe 380 has some experience with these transmissions and whatnot, but one of the drivers got in this truck and got on some slippery conditions and the rear tires locked up and the driver experienced a crash. So we're going to investigate that a little more, and I'm trying to, just sort of touching base with them in terms of doing videos and those types of things. So I'm hoping that I can talk to the manager at Ideal Lease, I can talk to the driver, and maybe talk to one of the representatives at Eaton, and maybe I can do a video on that about this new technology that's come out and how drivers are experiencing and interacting with this technology. Because it was kind of like a few years ago when we brought out ABS. There were a number of crashes because drivers did not know how to use ABS. So I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit about advancing automotive technology and how drivers are not being trained to use it, and unfortunately they're at risk because of that. So we're going to do a little bit more than that. Okay, Panas, you should not drive when you pass your road test. Yes, in the immediate hours after your road test, you should not drive. Yes, there we go. Hall phase, no, the door wasn't okay. It had to be fixed. Okay, 380, I know the fire truck, happy passing mentality very well. We had a course last week because of our lieutenant drove through a door. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Vinny. Jaden, good news. I'm halfway done all my drug and alcohol tests until I get my final exam done and permit. That's awesome. Panas, thank you so much. And Vinny, that would be awesome. Yes, and I'm going to work on that, so we'll see what we can do. And Jaden, my friend that works at EMS at Pace and Fire Rescue, and I can't have Christmas without snow. Well, we have snow here for sure, and I think I might go out and do a video on driving in the first snow of the year. Tommy, that's a good rule. I would try to remember that when I pass my CDLB permit and CDLB test. Yes, do not drive home. Get somebody else to drive you home. And I'll tell you another story about this. This one's even worse, about somebody driving home after they were successful on their road test. And actually, this person was my cousin. And it's kind of a distant cousin. I know of the person, but I don't really, see them or have interactions or family dinners or those types of things. But passed in the wintertime, driving home. It's about a 40-minute drive. He's driving with his mom, and it's a bit snowy, and he's not experienced in the snow and snowy conditions, and the visibility is poor, and drove into the back of a police cruiser on the way home after getting his license. So there you go. Another reason why you should not be driving after your road test when you're successful on your road test. Excuse me. 380. Eat your ultra shift. Got dang flappy paddle. Just ignore whatever you tell it. Even in manual and shifts, astoundingly slow. Actually got passed by a loaded B train of logs. It was a bobtail. Okay, 380. I had a similar experience. I had a bus in Australia that was, I think it was an auto shift. This is what they're calling it here. And this thing would not shift out of second gear going up a hill, and it was just embarrassing. You got like 50 passengers on a bus, and this bus will not go more than 20 kilometers an hour. So it's embarrassing. 217. What do you think of Canada's worst drivers? 217. I have seen some drivers. I don't really watch the show, but I should probably poke my head in and have a look and see what these people are doing. So I'll have a look and I'll let you know what I think. Okay, Ruthless Ant. Is it okay, by the way, driving in the snow? Yes, it's okay driving in the snow, and there's a series of videos here on the channel that you can have a look at that will give you more information for driving on the snow here in the wintertime. Hall phase. Have you ever seen people drag race on freeways? Ever on freeways? I can't say that I've seen it personally, Hall phase, but I do know that it happens, illegal street racing, and it does happen. So it happens in Vancouver, it happens in Toronto, it happens in other places in the world. So they've become really strict on that in terms of the police and the penalties that are involved if you do get caught with illegal street racing. So know that, okay? Jaden, speaking of the snow wreck, when I was in Utah in a rental 10-passenger Ford Transit bus, me and my dad thought we were going to crash into something when we were fighting on black ice. Yes, and there is ice, and you do need to know where that happens. And I'll just go over that quickly. Black ice, what we refer to as black ice, can be found in 5 places, and I will tell you when it is most likely to occur. When the temperature is around freezing is when you're going to find ice on the roadways. And the temperature around freezing, 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, you are going to get ice on the roadways. And it can be 3 or 4 degrees either way of freezing. Areas of the roadway that lie in shadow. Bridges and overpasses are going to freeze first. Low-lying areas on the roadway. When you have a dip in the roadway, you're going to get ice in those low-lying areas. High elevations, you're going to get ice. And any place that the roadway goes near a body of water, you are going to get ice on the roadway. So take note of that while you're driving along the roadway and what's happening with the road. As well, when you go out in the morning and there's been precipitation, I'll try and say that right with that word correctly, precipitation the night before, know that there is going to be ice because there's ice on your vehicles. But it is most likely to form when the temperature is around 0. Think about it when you take ice cubes out of the freezer. When you take ice cubes out of the freezer, the initial few moments of it being out of the freezer, it's sticky. And the reason it's sticky is because it's super cold. But if you leave it let the ice cube sit on the counter for 30 seconds or a minute, it starts to get slippery. The reason it starts to get slippery is because it melts a little bit. There's a layer of water on the ice cube, and the water is what lubricates the ice. So when the temperature is around 0, it's much more slippery and much more treacherous than when it's sub-zero temperatures. So take note of the temperature when you're driving and it's cold outside. 217. First time driving home from the highway, didn't even notice a cop car behind me trying to pass me because I was so nervous. Luckily, I didn't get pulled over. Yeah, if they're responding to an emergency, oftentimes they're not going to, stop to kind of have a go at you. But I know it's difficult when you don't have a lot of driving experience, but try and keep yourself going there and try and stay aware of what's going on and checking your mirrors and those types of things. But it does happen. We do sort of zone out, and unfortunately there are times that we're not going to see emergency vehicles around, especially if they only have their lights on and they don't have their sirens going. Okay, Jaden. with Google on Wednesday to see if it was 6 p.m. It was lying me. I was pedaling my bicycle in the cold. Google didn't tell you the truth. That does happen sometimes with Google. Okay, ice forms at around 1 or 2 degrees. Ask Snake, thank you, Rick, to make us safe on the roads. When two vehicles make left-hand turns in two-way streets, who needs to give the right of way? If they're across from each other, Ask Snake, one's gonna, yeah, like that. There we go. They're gonna go past each other. So if they're both making left-hand turns, they can both do it at the same time. Okay? So we're getting near the end here, the last 5 minutes. So we're gonna start winding up here. And we'll answer any last minute questions that you have as well. If you're new to Smart Drive Test, consider subscribing. Hit that thumbs up button as well. Leave us a comment. Always happy to answer your questions and help you be successful in passing a road test. And lots of stuff going on here at Smart Drive Test. Oh, and the other piece that I forgot to mention is that some of you may have seen the stories. I found out this week that I have stories, which are these short 20-second videos that I can do on my mobile, on my phone, that I can put up for you. So I'm going to experiment with that a little bit and see how that goes for you. There's a couple of limitations to the videos. First of all, they're 20 seconds, so they're not very long. And the second limitation is that you're only allowed portrait on your phone. You're not allowed landscape, which I don't understand, because for me, it's very limiting because I can't put stuff in the background to show you what I'm talking about behind me, which I usually do. So I find portrait very limiting on the stories. So maybe somebody can talk to YouTube and say, hey, what's with the portrait? So that's the other thing that's going on that I'm trying to do. I have a friend at school that is already driving, another friend that's about getting ready to drive. So that's awesome. So we can help them out. Jaden, let them know about Smart Drive Test. Good night, Vinny. Thank you so much, and I'll work more on the stories for you. Ruthless Ant, when two vehicles arrive at an intersection, why the left vehicle has to signal first? Ruthless Ant, I think what you need to do is look at the video, and Corey will get this up for you, on basic rules for right-of-way and the four-way stop video, and those two videos will give you some more in-depth information about the rules and right-of-way at these types of intersections and help you out. Panas, 20-second videos are near nothing. Yes, as I was finding out as I was trying to get these stories going, that 20 seconds really is really short. Okay, YouTube ripped off Snapchat just like Instagram. Yes. Yep. We won't talk about any of that. All right. I'll let them know. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up there for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and asking your questions. Oh, 380, did I skip you? There we go. We'll head back. Want to make sure that gets read before it cuts, but thank you. Love the stories. Would love to have a drink with you if I'm ever out that way. And that would be great. Thank you so much, 380, and I would really enjoy getting together for a beverage. Be sure to look me up. And yes, that's great. Awesome. And thank you for the reminder. All right, thank you everybody for showing up. Congratulations to everybody who passed the road test in the last couple of weeks. That is tremendously awesome. If you have a road test coming up this week, good luck on your road test. All the best. If you have any questions at all, leave comments. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button as well. Subscribe to the channel. We're fast closing in on the 100,000, and we're probably going to get the plaque in February. We're going to hit the 100,000 mark, so we're really great. Panas, where'd you go? What are runaway truck lanes? Oh, on the roadways. Okay, so the runaway truck lanes, Panas, are for trucks that lose their brakes, and often it's due to brake fade. They overheat the brakes, and the brakes don't work anymore, and they have to get onto one of these runaway lanes to stop the truck safely. Okay, that's what they're for. Good night. Reversing into, so you're looking for a 2-point reverse turn. Corey will get that video up for you. 217, that's what you're looking for. Okay, so if you've got a road test coming up in the next week, good luck in your road test. All the best. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.